want to start our next session on human security and pandemic. Our chairperson and co-chairperson is not present at that moment. Maybe both are busy in some other work. So I want to start. When they will come, then I will hand over the session to them. But before that, I want to start the session so that we can complete it by time. So without delay, I want to invite our first panelist of this session, Dr. Shikha Nagori, who is Assistant Professor at Bhopal Nobles University, Udaipur, Rajasthan. Okay, Sheila Rai just arrived. Just 1 second. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Nandini. Is the session?
So I want to now formally welcome our chairperson, Dr. Sheila Rai, who is President, Indian Society of Gandhian Studies, Rajasthan, and ex-principal, St. Xavier's College, Jaipur, and also co-chairperson, Dr. Seema Chaudhary, who is Associate Professor of Sanskrit at Government College, Bundi, Rajasthan. We have 9 papers here. Ma'am, over to you now to manage panel 8 on human security and pandemic.
So, thank you, Nandini. And I want to congratulate you for persistently conducting such events. I think this is your second international conference of this kind that you're conducting?
Third, ma'am.
Third, okay. So more than what I thought. Okay, very good. And you somehow seem to know how to conduct it well. And I'm glad that you're doing, and especially on a subject which is so very of such contemporaneous value. Anyway, so as I understand this, what you have sent me, the session is human security and pandemic, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
We have in total 9 papers, is it?
Yes.
7.
9.
I can see 7, 9.
Yeah, I sent you through WhatsApp
okay.
Now.
Okay. So the 9 papers that we have, I will go by the order in which it has been given to me. So I hope all the participants, all the paper presenters have joined. I welcome you all. And I'm also glad that I have Seema Chaudhary here as co-chair with me. Seema, tumhara swagat hai. And also, I want to broadly first lay down a few rules as to how I would like to conduct it so that the paper presenters can follow those guidelines. I would allocate 5 minutes to each paper presenter, and please keep that. I know it's very unfair. You work hard on a paper and you can't summarize everything in 5 minutes, but since you've submitted your paper, so what I would suggest that in the 5 minutes, you present the object, introduce yourself and present your objectives, your main findings and conclusion. I think that should be enough, other than something very important that you want to highlight. And after that, when we get time, maybe we can discuss on those subjects. And Nandini, do we have scope for question and answers and interactions? I don't think Nandini is here. Anyway, so given the timeline, we shall proceed with in the order that I have been given the papers. As we all know that pandemic has threatened human security as nothing else before. And this is one occasion where the traditional security threats have been overwhelmed by a non-traditional security threat. Generally, we think of warfare and we also think of terrorism, although terrorism also falls within the non-traditional, broadly speaking, security threats, but a biological kind of a reason, a health disaster, which has impacted the world without respecting any territorial boundaries, no class distinctions, and has wreaked havoc on the world in unprecedented measures. So this is broadly, we all know, and human security, not only national security, not only global level securities, but individual securities have also been affected by that. So I will reserve my comments for the end, and I will try to sum up what you are all trying to say here. So rather than take up more time, I will conclude in the end and give my president chair remarks at the end. I would invite Dr. Shikha Nagori, Assistant Professor, Bhupal Nobles University, Udaipur, Rajasthan. And you're presenting your paper on human security and pandemic. So Dr. Shikha Nagori, I invite you to come and present your paper, and I would request you to try and restrict yourself within that 5-minute guideline.
Shikha, you are co-host now, so if you want, you can unmute yourself as well as share your screen.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Shikha Nagori. Today, I am here to speak on the topic human security and pandemic. The conception of human security represents a departure from traditional notion of security, which concentrate on the security of the state. Human security goes beyond state and focuses security of individualities anywhere in world, and its and things is the protection of people from traditional and unconventional pitfalls similar as poverty, hungers, and complaints. Human security entered into the policy and academic debates in the early 1990s. Human Development Report of UN in 1994 was the pivotal corner, and the core theme of human security is that security is seen as military trouble is only one of the multiple pitfalls of individualities which need to collaborate of multiple actors including countries. COVID-19 exposes the structural inequalities and contradictions which underpin norms of security in many societies. Given that experience of security and insecurities are shaped by gender, social economics, and inequalities. And thank you so much.
Good, Shikha, you took less than even 2 minutes. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Now I invite Sarmita Day, visiting faculty of Amity University, Mumbai, and in Narsimunji, Mumbai. Human security and the effects of the pandemic of education. Yes, please, Sarmita Dey.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair, and all distinguished academicians present here. So I would like to share my screen if I'm allowed to do so.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sharmita Di, you are co-host now, so you can
Yes.
share your screen.
Yes, I am sharing. I am sharing. Yes, it's taking some time. Just a second. I'm sure it's going to come up. Yes. Is this visible?
Not yet.
Is it visible now, ma'am?
It's not yet.
Yes, I have. Yes, you are screen sharing. Yes, I can see that.
No, now it's visible.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, ma'am, is it visible to you? Am I audible?
You are audible. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. So the title for my paper is Human Security and the Effect of the Pandemic on Education. So this paper looks at the effect of the pandemic on human security in the context of deprivation of education of children during the pandemic. which is tantamount to deprivation of capabilities. So this serious problem may be solved using the capability approach of Nobel laureate Professor Amartya Sen, whereby the combination of individual characteristics, access to resources, and the lived environment interact to affect a person's opportunity to be and do the things they value. In this case, to be educated. So this generation of students who've lost a lot of learnings in this 2-year period during the pandemic, has with the loss of $17 trillion in lifetime earnings in present value, or about 14% of today's global GDP. And this is a report published in December 2021 by the World Bank, UNESCO, and UNICEF. So the human security is in question during these pandemic times, because children of poor households are left out from online education because of not being able to afford smartphones and non-availability of data connectivity and electricity. Children in primary classes are often first-generation learners, and they don't have parental support. So young rural schoolgirls were married off during the pandemic. So we find increasing dropouts, particularly in case of girl children. And many parents lost their lives due to COVID. And as a result, children were hugely disadvantaged. And another thing is that children were deprived of nutritious diet when dry ration to the family was substituted for midday meals. So the list is really long in respect of rural poor children. But in respect of urban children, the situation was slightly better. But however, because this form of online education is not viable at the tender age, when interaction with peers and play is a part of school routine and contributes towards making learning enjoyable and easy, there is, of course, a disadvantage in this online method of learning. So where does the capabilities approach of Dr. Sen come into the picture? Capability refers to the set of valuable functionings that a person has effective access to. Can we provide capabilities to school children so that they're able to cope with this learning loss that has happened in the 2 years of the pandemic? By now, we have sufficient information during these 2 years, and we can hopefully cope with this mammoth challenge facing school education. And if we look at the different intelligent quotient levels of children and give them suitable requirements as per their needs, so that they can utilize their capabilities to the best. So this capabilities approach has been utilized, has been adopted in Malawi, Africa. And as you see, the details are given. Harold Kuombola and Katie Sykes has gone ahead with this project, and they have use this approach whereby the combination of individual characteristics, access to resources, and the lived environment interact to affect a person's opportunity to be and do the things they value. So they designed a holistic project which addressed the multiple barriers faced by marginal learners. So learning poverty has been described by the World Bank, and today it's expected that 70% of 10-year-olds are not able to read basic text in low and middle income countries, so primarily developing countries. So World Bank is doing its best and has rapidly ramped up its support to developing countries. How well is India faring? There is this PME Vidya initiated as part of Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan on 17 May 2020. 15 NGOs have come forward and they have put forward their recommendations. And some of them include ensure equitable access to school by reducing school dropouts and ensure demand for education is not lowered. So identifying the exact learning needs of child and design teaching to meet them at their level, give them time of at least 2 to 3 years to compensate for the forgotten learning, empower district and block level officials. So basically this decentralizing the learning process, mobilizing community workers as well, so that children make up for the learning loss. In conclusion, I would like to say that the India and the developing world can cope with the learning issues of children by adopting the capabilities approach. So when the government of India and NGOs talk about the special needs of the marginalized groups, the personal attention to be given to each child, redefining the roles of teachers and engaging parents as partners and enablers in the process. It's the capabilities approach that is being adhered to. How well the implementation of the solution arrived at in India takes place is important, and we will keep a track on it. All developing countries must have the capabilities approach in mind while working out a solution for their school children. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Sarmita. That was a good presentation. We have Dr. Muhammad Yunus Bhatt from Government Degree College, Kulgam, University of Kashmir. Human security in the post-COVID-19 world. Yes, please.
I think he is not here.
Okay. So shall we go to the next then? Yeah. This is next Anjum Ara Shamim, Assistant Professor, University of Kashmir, and Dr. Sanjida Varsi from again Professor, University of Kashmir. Impact of COVID-19 on migrant workers in Jammu and Kashmir. Now that sounds interesting. Please go ahead.
Yes. A very good afternoon to everyone. This is Dr. Anjum Ara from Kashmir University, and we're speaking on impact of COVID-19 on migrant workers. Migration has been defined and explained by different schools, primarily providing varied reasons for the phenomenon of migration. A migrant worker is an individual who is absent from his permanent place of residence for the purpose of seeking remunerated employment in places other than his birthplace or his native place. And there are seasonal migrants, we have long-term migrants, and we have migrants who migrate without family, and we have migrants who move along with their family. Now, Kashmir society, as we all know, it has been badly affected due to the prolonged nature of the conflict situation. It has severely impaired every aspect of society. However, the presence of migratory laborers from other states of India in such a precarious situation is a noteworthy situation. In a conflict zone where it's extremely difficult for even locals to ensure their own safety, how these migrant workers are coping with situations, particularly after this COVID-19 pandemic. See, lockdowns, they are not a new phenomenon in the Kashmir Valley, but still migrants have become an integral part of the local economy of Jammu and Kashmir. They are mostly masons, carpenters, laborers, barbers, embroideries, people who do embroideries. And even we have seen people working in gold ornament shops also. The local economy, I can say, it rests on the shoulders of an estimated 1 million strong migrant worker population that comes from different parts of India. And migrant laborers are estimated to make up 80% of the valley's construction workforce. And number of seasonal migrants in Kashmir, they vary from 2 lakh to 5 lakhs. Around 28 lakh migrants from other parts of India, they also come to Kashmir. And Kashmir being a conflict zone, it has its own share of security and safety concerns in comparison to other parts of India. Despite this, thousands of workers travel to various parts of Kashmir in search of livelihood. And these migrants, they come to the state in the month of Feb and stay till October. And we see that they were here before this COVID-19 pandemic started, and the government of India decided to implement a nationwide lockdown in the country. And because of this lockdown, it came as an unwelcome shock to all citizens, particularly those migrants, because it seemed to be the only effective method to limit the spread of disease before the number of cases began to rise. But it was the urban poor and interstate migrants who were most affected by the complete shutdown of air, rail, and road transport, leaving them stranded in cities away from their families and without any flow of income. Now, many of them were left helpless when rations began thinning out, and the only solution seemed to be mass exodus of migrants with over thousands of people fleeing the cities on foot, numerous even dying along the way to their home. Now, migrants, they are less familiar in their new environment in which they temporarily live. They are prone to various, we say, social, psychological, and emotional trauma in such situation. And these all come up because of fear of neglect by the local community and the concerns about well-being and safety of their families who are waiting at their native places. Migrants, why do they leave? Because they have better opportunities and earnings. But this turned a disaster for them. And the immediate concern faced by these migrants was related to food, shelter, healthcare, fear of getting infected or spreading the infection, loss of wages, concerns about the family, anxiety, fear. Sometimes they also face harassment and negative reactions of the local community as well. And all this, it called for a strong social protection as an immediate response to be taken to ensure community shelters, community kitchens, making other relief material available, emphasizing on the need for social distancing, identification of suspected cases of infection, and adherence to protocols for management of such cases, putting up mechanisms to enable them reach to their family members through maybe telephone, maybe video calls and all, and ensuring their physical safety. Migrant workers faced with the situation of spending a few days in temporary shelters, which may be quarantine centers, while trying to reach their native places, were filled with anxieties and fears stemming from various concerns. They were also in need of psychosocial support, and a lot had to be had to come from government, NGOs, and various other organizations who were there to help them. Now, what was important was that every migrant worker was to be treated with dignity, respect, empathy, and compassion. We had to listen to their concerns patiently and understand their problem. Huh? We had to be recognize specific and varied needs for each person that was there. There should have been no generalization. We had to help them or acknowledge the unusual situation of uncertainty, and we had to assure them that the situation is not going to last long. Normal life is going to resume soon. We should help them, as I said, through government or NGOs or other some institutions. And we had to lay emphasis on the importance of staying in their present location and how mass movement could adversely affect all the contains to contain the virus. Make them realize their importance in the community and appreciate their contributions for the society. Remind them that they have a place with their own efforts, acquired and the trust of their employer to send remittance to their families and therefore deserve all respect. Reassure that even if their employer fails them, local administration and charitable institutions, they would extend all possible help. But out of desperation, many may react in a manner which may appear insulting. So we should try to understand their issues and be patient with these migrants. And if some of they were getting affected, we had to tell them that this is curable and we will recover from this pandemic. And we have to had to remind them that it's safer for their families if they stay away from them. And I would like to say that instead of reflecting any mercy, we should seek their support in the spirit of winning over the situation together. And I would say that human values, they should be considered more. Thank you.
Scenarios which were visible and which actually tugged at the hearts of people across the world. And yes, everybody knows that J&K has a lot of migrant labor for workforce, but 80%, that's quite a huge number. Anyway, we will discuss these after all the paper presentations. I would now request the next presenter, Arshad Bhatt, postdoctoral research associate in Sher-e-Kashmir University of Agriculture. Your topic is COVID-19 pandemic and governance issues and challenges in India. Yes, please, Arshad Bhatt, go ahead.
Ma'am, Arshad Bhatt is not present here.
Okay, so we go to the next one, and that is impact of online teaching among women teachers and parents during coronavirus pandemic in Madurai. Wow, that's good.
But
So
P.
this is-
Lalita, ma'am, P. Lalita is also not present here.
Oh, many absentees, is it?
Yeah.
So we have the next paper on work-life balance among female healthcare employees during COVID-19, a systematic review of the literature. This is Bhuvanesh Kumar from Mizoram University. Do we have this person?
Yes. Bhubanesh, you are now co-host, so you can share your screen if you want. Bhubanesh Kumar. Neither we can see you or hear you.
It takes a little time to connect online. But now we all have got quite accustomed. Yes, Bhuvanesh Kumar. Is he there? Can you?
Yes, I can see him. His mic I can see on. He's co-host, but his video is not available. Maybe Bhubanesh try to leave the session and re-enter. In the meanwhile, can we call our next presenter?
Yes, the next one is
Bhubanesh, just leave and re-enter.
Manas Kumar Behra of, he's a research scholar of JNU Delhi, and he presents his paper on COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on migrant workers' livelihood, an observation on India. So from JNK, this is, I suppose, a pan-India scenario that he wants to present. Yes, please go ahead, Manas Kumar Behra.
Hello, ma'am. May I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are audible, beta. Go ahead.
Hello, distinguished chair. Good afternoon, and co-chair. Good afternoon to all. And my heartfelt gratitude to Nandini ma'am to give me this opportunity to be present here. My topic is about the COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on migrant workers, observation on India. In here, we see the COVID-19 pandemic has first basically detected in Wuhan city of China. Then it spread all over the world, which has created the situation devastation. Basically, it more impacted the migrant workers' livelihood. In India, the migrant workers was the backbone of the country's economy here in the past, where the from Janta curfew to till date, the migrant workers faced various livelihood problems. Firstly, when the government of India declared the nationwide lockdown, the migrant workers face huge problem due to the travel problem, and another is during the travel thousands of migrant workers face serious of problems, and many of them died on the way before reach their destination, and many of them died due to the road accidents, and some committed suicide during this time. After they return to their village, their hometown, their native place, they have faced series of problems like job security, money problem, and food security, and all other things. And basically, some NGOs and individuals and many of the social workers have distributed foods to them, and also clothes and groceries to them. The government of India, basically the some states like Odisha and Kerala and Delhi government played very good role to control the pandemic, and many of the states played dirty politics, and they only think about to choose their vote banks. They no one the state government to provide some good assistance to the migrant workers. And in that time, when the migrant workers come to their village, their hometown, they have they don't have any job security. Like in government of India, only one of the job security is like in Monrega. In here, the serious problem faced during the COVID pandemic, the government was unable to provide the job security to all the migrant workers. In that time, the government of India, like Prime Minister, announced to Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana to the 5 most vulnerable states like Odisha, West Bengal, and Bihar, and Bihar, Chhattisgarh, and Uttar Pradesh, where the migrant workers was more vulnerable. That's why the government provided this system. And another is economic assistance provided by the some states to the migrant workers, like to bring back the migrant workers to through the economic assistance. Like one of the state is Odisha. Odisha provided 2,000 rupees for migrants workers where they settle in basically the quarantine center and home isolation. And West Bengal is another example. He also provided the, and UP also one of the example who provided the 1,000 rupees to each migrant workers. And another thing is here in India, internationally, India is one of the leading country who contribute 6% of the world's population, where the 18 million people are staying outside of the India, where the international migrants, overseas migrants have faced huge problems, and they also requested the government of India to bring back them to the home state, where the government of India launched two important schemes. One is Vande Mataram and another is Sagarmala project, Sagarmala, to bring back the migrant workers to the home state, where many of the migrant workers from Middle East and Maldives and Sri Lanka from Indian government brought to the Indian mainland. And another problem is here health problems of the migrant workers. In here, the migrant workers, there is no scheme, no technical institutions to provide the migrant workers to make them skillful, where the migrant workers basically staying overpopulated and unhygienic environment. They have serious health problems like work related problem and mental disability and other serious problems. The migrant workers faced many of the problems in the under COVID pandemic. And and another problem is here, the migrant workers don't have food as much as they consume, where the government of India also provided 5 kg per person and 1 kg pulse for the person, but this was not sufficient to the migrant workers, where they have many problems. And in my paper, I also described some of the suggestions to the government of India, and some schemes, like if government of India will provide the technical assistance to the migrant workers. Basically, if the skillful, if they will make the skillful, they will not dependent on other states. They also don't migrate to the other place, where the government of India, in lastly, government of India take migrant workers through the Shramik train, where the migrant workers also died in the train due to the dehydration and lack of food, lack of water, where the migrant. And another is a horrifying accident come to the Maharashtra, where 14 the migrant workers died on the train, where they slept on the train line, where the train is gone through the migrant workers, where the 14 of them died. And my paper, I conclude the paper where the I suggest to, if the government of India will provide the migrant workers some technical assistance to the migrant workers, along with the job security, along with the health infrastructure for the migrant workers, along with the treatment of their mental health problem, that will be good for the migrant workers, as the migrant workers the backbone of the country, and they are contributing the infrastructure and all round development of the India. If the government will do the same as like the developed countries, that will be good for the migrant workers. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Manas. You did present a pan-India picture, but the concluding sentence, do you think that the migrant workers have been given a the developed countries do not face those kind of problems that we are facing, but yet there is a lot yet to be done even in the developed countries. That does not take away from the fact that we also have to do a lot for our country. We will discuss this in just 5 minutes. The next person who was supposed to, Bhuvnesh. Is he there? Is Bhuvnesh there? Has he been able to join, Nandini?
Yes. No, I think
he's not able
Bhuvanesh
to
is
join.
not here. Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll sum it up, and all the paper presenters, I would.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
actually one paper is in women section, but that paper is also on pandemic. If you allow that paper, then she can present.
Yeah, okay, let her present the paper, yeah.
Somdatta, please introduce yourself and also tell us your paper title and present.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, the chair and the co-chair, and everybody present here. I am Dr. Somdatta Banerjee. I am from Niwalipur College. I teach political science. And so thank you, Dr. Nandini Bashisht, for allowing me to present the paper, whereas I was in a different section. I couldn't come on that day. And so thank you, the organizers, for letting me present my paper. My paper is on a pandemic, within the pandemic, gender-related violence in India. So may I share the screen?
Yes, please go ahead. I
Thank
only
you.
hope you're able to do that, because there are people.
Yes, you are co-host now, so you can share.
Okay, I'm trying. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So now, basically, okay. The Indian Constitution, as I said, my paper, I just talked about my paper title, A Pandemic Within the Pandemic, Gender-Related Violence in India. The Indian Constitution, basically, it says that we all are equal, both men and women. There's no doubt about it. And the gender role is basically constructed by the society. Is basically constructed by the society. Herein, the theory of performativity plays a very important role. And though we are all equal, assured by the Constitution, there are gender discrimination within the society, and the pandemic has made it very clear that yes, the discrimination prevails. Now, two pandemic together. The term pandemic, as we define it, is a global outbreak caused by a strain of a virus previously unknown to human population. We know that, all know that. But the UN Entity for Gender Equity and Empowerment of Women 2014 has termed the global pervasiveness of violence against women and children and the girl child as pandemic 2. So as COVID-19 hit the world, two kind of pandemic came together. COVID-19, highly visible and receiving significant public attention, resources, and the violence against women, its prevalence and harms far less visible, and efforts to address is under-resourced. So we have two pandemics residing together, and they not only coexist, but they interact. It has been seen a rise in domestic violence as we try to contain the COVID-19. We all know that because COVID-19 has told us to remain confined at homes. We shouldn't come out. We should mental social distancing. We shouldn't be mixing up with people. And for few, this has become a curse for them. They were all mostly confined with their violent partners, separating them from the people and resources that can help them. And this collateral damage of the epidemic seems higher than the actual pandemic has caused. To begin with, I'll cite an example which I have titled as Please Help. And I read out, I'm calling you from the Russian shop as I'm scared to talk from home. My husband lost his factory job a month ago and is always in the house. He beats me in front of the kids, doesn't help around. I'm in the house, and flings the liquor bottle at me if I try to reason things with him. I'm trapped in my house. This is a plaintive call, and this was made in the dead of the night to a crisis intervention counselor at the Center for Social Research, a New Delhi based non profit working for gender equality. Another a visual impact. This, I believe, all of us have seen in the YouTube. This is a movie by Nandita Das. I mean, she is the featuring person out here, and it's Listen to Her. So let's listen to her.
We can't listen to anything, Somdatta.
You can't listen to anything?
No.
Okay, I'm trying once again. Now just see if you can see. You can hear now?
It's a visual effect. Yes, we can read the subtitles.
Oh.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Here, because you can't get the sound, here the bashing was going on. The husband was just beating the wife. So this was the thing where it says, where we couldn't hear it because that time it was a fiasco was going on at home. The husband was beating because the lady couldn't cook properly. So this was the situation. This was the story was ran. She was asking for help. So what happened during the COVID situation? Why? In the wake of the lockdown, the home was seen as refuge. Social isolation and mandatory confinement with potential abusers increased domestic violence. A 2020 found 131% increase in domestic violence complaints in May 2020 in the districts which saw strictest of the lockdowns. The National Commission of Women (NCW) received 13410 complaints from March to September 2020, of which 4350 were domestic violence. Complaints peaked in March to May period, with one-third complaints filed in just 3 months. Now, if I yeah, so if we see this, the amount of help the domestic violence survivor tried to reach, we can see only 9.1% could say someone sought help 14.3 and 76.6 were all quiet. So the two one case study and one visual effect I showed that were from 14.3%. So baki they couldn't reach out to the people. What happened? The nation-wide lockdown created economic turmoil which had immense economic impacts. I showed the picture of the lower middle class over here, but we as women who are present here, all are academicians, highly educated, but we all know what we have also gone through during the pandemic. We played the role of a mother, a housewife, a daughter-in-law, and a mother and a wife too. In this, listen to her movie. If somebody has watched it, they know after this visual part was over, this Nandita Das was asked to make a coffee with a proper amount of sugar for her husband. Whereas she was also in the Zoom meet and his husband was also in the Zoom meet. But she had to balance among the work and the home. And along with that, she had to manage the son also. The son was playing with the football. She had to tell her son, give me 5 minutes, son. Let me finish the meeting and I'll go and I'll talk to you. So this was there. Somebody was about to present a paper on an online teaching. I believe she or he was not there. So I believe that that time it would have been talked about also. So this balance was there. Between March and April 2020, an estimated 17 million women in both formal and informal sectors were left jobless. Female child school dropouts increased. Yes, we have seen all in mostly I've seen in my area where I stay in West Bengal. I've seen that many girl child has never come back to school. They are either married off, they are young mothers also. So this pandemic has created lots of issues not only for the women but also for the children. The government didn't go sit back. They took up many initiatives. They opened up existing government schemes where became operational, like one-stop centers, Ujala homes, emergency response support. WhatsApp based helplines came up by the ncws. Various states at the regional level, they have taken up issues. The hashtag lockdown on domestic violence campaigns, they were being started. But this was the governmental initiative. But how many people could reach there? So what is the way out? The theory of performativity, the hegemonic masculinity theory, has to be deconstructed. The time has come. And what I believe, that domestic violence is often shrouded in quietness. That is not the need of the hour. We need to generate awareness. Awareness not at a level for us, the middle age group, from the school level. All are equal. The equality, the equity, that should be feed it to the kids from the school level also. They need to understand that all are equal. Not only that, the women has this role, the men had this role. That should not be the scenario. All are equal should be the one. That should be feeded from the childhood level. Another thing is that, more youth engagement is required. The youth who are the future citizens, they should be, engaged more and more to understand, talk about the domestic violence, talk about what are violence, what are harassments, and what should be followed. Another one thing, when I was doing an RC on disaster management, I found there were many issues being covered, but there was no certain issues on women specific issues. So many a time we have seen, whenever a disaster has hit, the women were the last one to go and seek help. They send their men, they send their children, and they were the last one. So in the holistic disaster management preparedness, the women-centric issues should be taken up. Thank you so much.
Good. It was a good presentation. And I think this was the last one.
Yes, ma'am.
So now I would say we can sum up. सीमा, तुम्हें कुछ बोलना है? पहले तुम बोल लो, फिर मैं सम अप कर दूंगी.
ज्यादा कुछ नहीं बोलना है मैम, बस good afternoon to everyone. On behalf of IIHSG, welcome to you in this session, and I think this webinar is useful for all participants. I thankful to Dr. Nandini ma'am for giving me this opportunity, and the session is all presenters are very good.
Okay.
Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you, Seema. Now I would like to just say I have a few observations. I don't know how much time we would have for, are we entertaining questions, Nandini?
No, ma'am, but we are eager to see your observations because, yeah.
I will. So the papers were good. Some of them could be, you made a good effort, but some of them could have been a more judicious balance between, whenever you do a research paper, you have your a hypothesis in mind, and you already have something in mind and you go ahead with it and you deal with it, then you realize that there was there is a different aspect of it, there is a different view of it that could also be taken into cognizance. But nonetheless, this was something that the pandemic was such that nobody could have even imagined it, nobody envisaged it, leave alone individuals, countries could not envisage it, despite the fact that earlier also there had been a pandemic, but people thought that is history, and history, they forgot that history repeats itself. And when it repeats itself, it could be very, very disastrous. So this time, the way it has impacted the whole world, more than 60 lakh people have died. And if this is the number of casualties that we have had, you can imagine that those who are alive still, how they are alive, but they are very, very deeply impacted by it. And I cannot say that we cannot accept that nobody in this world, anybody in this world would have remained unimpacted by this. But before I go to my own views on this subject, I would like to say that Shikha did a too brief a presentation, but yes, it was a good presentation. Sarmita talked of the impact on education. And I completely agree with you, Sarmita, that online teaching is a very weak substitute for education. The interface that you have offline, the kind of environment that is created in school, etc., can never be substituted by online teaching. But something is better than nothing. That for sure is there. It was a extra load on the teachers, and hats off to the teachers who have stood up to the occasion. And from primary section, and in fact, at school level mostly, the teachers have not only stood up to the occasion, have adopted the use of technology in a very praiseworthy manner. Yes, it has its deficiencies and everything. I do understand, to be honest, I haven't gone through Amartya Sen's capability building, whatever approach that he has given, but it does require some kind of implementation. Policies and suggestions do come galore. How they are implemented and with what sincerity the governments go ahead with it. And also, one size does not fit all. Every country, every society has its own specificities. And therefore, you have to, adapt, adopt, assimilate, and create a synthesis of it to see how well it suits it. But we are glad that we have institutions like World Bank, which is willing to help, and they are trying to build capabilities and expand the capabilities. And of course, our own country has also, initially there was a lot of criticism, but on hindsight, when we see to it, we have not fared as badly as many other countries. As I said, the pandemic has affected the rich and the poor all together. And surprisingly, America, being one of the strongest and richest countries, also has suffered casualties more than most of the other countries, which speaks of the unprecedented characteristic of this pandemic. But yes, we need to redefine the roles of institutions and how education has definitely been impacted. And India, through its Atmanirbhar programs and projects, and especially the project that you highlighted, PM Vidya, Prime Minister Vidya program, that is also a very good program through which they are trying. It's too early to pass a judgment yet. We are still it's in a declining situation. We are keeping our fingers and toes crossed that the pandemic, it's done with and almost getting over with, but we cannot say for sure that we are not in for a third wave. But so far, I do agree that everything has been impacted in life. So has education, because that is also one aspect of life. And with the kind of, and the poor households, of course, suffer most. So you did a good presentation. I hope the Amartya Sen suggestions that he has provided, the World Bank has agreed upon, and developing countries will implement them in their own ways with their own indigenous methods. And we can provide some kind of relief and try to catch up on the losses and mitigate the losses that the youth have suffered and the general public at large have suffered. So good, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
The paper on migrant workers of J&K by Dr. Anjum Ara and her colleague, that was also a good paper, and it laid down, gave us some statistics which we generally do know, but we weren't very clear about the exact numbers. And what you have pointed out, Dr. Anjum, is absolutely true about your state where you live, and also applies to most of the states where Kerala also has a large number of migrant labor. And as another Manas had pointed out, I will deal with both the papers together. Manas gave a pan-India picture. He has rightly pointed out that 5 most vulnerable states, in the sense that they provide the most migrant labor. And those are the states which have, those migrant labor have been affected most. And as you said, it is not just sympathy which is required. We need to empathize with their pain. We need to give them do the outreach and give them the requisite help on all fronts. And nobody can disagree with the fact, the media visuals that we saw of the migrant labor crossing across large tracts of land, those were very heart-wrenching scenes. Many lost their lives, as Manas Behra has also pointed out. But the governments have tried to mitigate their sufferings. Earlier, they were also looking askance, not realizing what to do. But gradually, they took stock of the situation. Maybe a delayed response, but eventually the response was such that it is continuing till date, the kind of ration that is being provided to them. Even if not as adequate as we would want it to be, at least it is trying to mitigate their sufferings. And the workers' livelihoods have been impacted, their educations have been impacted, because children who were suffering in the place where they had migrated to with their parents, coming back to their hometowns or villages, to the rural sector, obviously they do not get that kind of access to education due to lack of, not only capabilities, also their impoverished conditions, and the rural sector not being as tech savvy or technology not being as available to them as the urban sectors, which has been rightly pointed out, that the urban sectors did suffer, but the rural sectors on certain aspects suffered more than the urban sectors. We noticed that the societal philanthropy was also at its best at certain times. We saw people reaching out to them with food and all kinds of relief measures, whether it was medical equipment, whether it was clothing. So, there are positives and negatives of every situation. And if the negatives were that we were ill prepared for it, and it's not only we, when I say we, entire humanity across the globe was not prepared for it. But the positives of it is that we have been able to see that the governments have come forth, some very well, as was pointed out, that some were, honored as role models, some not initially as proactive as they should have been. But yes, there were various social groups, communities which came forth, and we have seen that governments and business have been impacted. But a country like India, where we are seeing elections also, contestations going on, even one very big, strong basis has been how have those respective political parties or governments responded to this calamitous situation. So a pandemic did not affect people only when it was at its peak. It is going to have a long-term effect. And the long-term effect is not only for, now I come to the next one, where gender-related violence, even children have suffered a lot. Senior citizens have suffered a lot. In fact, if we come to this fact, if we try to realize, we've witnessed a social Darwinism these days. And what is social Darwinism? Where survival of the fittest, those who had comorbidities, they succumbed. Even the poor, they could not avail the facilities the way, but even the rich, they could not, beyond, if you notice that in the beginning, the hospitals were filled with these people because it was, rightly or wrongly, it was perceived that those living in in lesser privileged backgrounds have a sense of immunity, which has no scientific data to substantiate it. But this was the general perception, that the higher elite were less immune, and they had the kind of paraphernalia they have at home. They had help coming home and different kinds of, and also they did not follow the kind of protocol to that extreme measure. And so we noticed that all kinds of people were looking for hospitals, approaching hospitals, how we suffered from all kinds of inadequacies, whether it is medical equipment, whether it is hospital facilities and sanitizers and oxygen and everything. Thankfully, that is all behind us now. But yes, women bore the brunt doubly. I liked the way you said 2 pandemics. So it was the double pandemic, one pandemic, which was the virus creating it, and one pandemic for the violence, domestic violence endured by the women there. That gender justice is still a far away, and we still have miles to go. As the suggestions you made are right, but we also have to see it in this way, that it wasn't only the women who suffered. Women suffered definitely more, because the working women especially, they lost their jobs. Those who were confined to the work and working from home has become the general criteria. Their domestic chores and their official work was such, because they were not getting domestic help also for a long time during the shutdown. It has been really, really very trying. So we need to, again, try to mitigate their sufferings. We have to sensitize people towards it. Pandemic or no pandemic, gender equity is something, gender justice is something that we all need to strive, and it's across the world. Some countries are more afflicted, the more populous ones, the more traditional ones, the more conservative societies are more affected with it. Governments are coming forth with programs, and you can see that even the girl children are being sensitized. But as you rightly pointed out, it's not only the girls who need to be sensitized, it's the boys, the men who need to be sensitized more than the girls. Girls have to be more vociferous, but the men have to be more sensitive towards them and walk an extra mile to provide them the support and protection that is required. So overall, the papers were good presentations, and we need to further delve into what we have been working on. We have to remember that this pandemic has caused not only individual security, but social security, national security. Best part is the United Nations has been, people are not very confident about the role of United Nations, leave alone the United Nations, an organization which was specifically created for health purposes, the WHO. The WHO was also under attack. None other than even the President of America was saying that we are going to withdraw our financial support because they were not happy. There were such confused directions being given. There was no clarity, and the kind of asymmetry that we saw, there is no balance between the medical production, whether it is pharmaceuticals, whether it is masks, whether it is hospital equipment, etc. It is either America and China which gave most of the material, and despite all the rivalry between the US and China, we could see that China also had a pivotal role to play, despite being ascribed that villainous status that many people called it the Chinese virus. Yet the dependence on China for all kinds of productive manufacturing support, nobody could deny that. So whether it was America, China, Germany and UK, and thankfully India has played a very positive role, whether it is vaccine Maitri, because of which we were criticized earlier, but Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam being the ideal of India, we thought, and rightly so, that one country cannot be safe no matter how vaccinated your entire population gets, unless the other countries are also vaccinated, because now it's a global village that we are living in. So we are lucky that we have survived the pandemic. We have lost more than 60 lakh lives, but are at the individual level, at the economic level, social level, national level, educational level, we have seen unprecedented disruptions, and the psychological impact, the long-term health impact, that is still yet to be studied. Results could be even more disturbing, but what we can say that the positive of it is that at least it has created an awareness where people are now more ready, more willing to take up these challenges. There is a greater level of preparedness, and that perhaps will provide us the security that is very endangered. So thank you one and all. And Nandini, congratulations again to you. Thank you to all the paper presenters. And I'm very glad that the younger generation is thinking so sensitized, in a sensitized manner towards all this, which is afflicting humanity at large. And the governments are also involved in that. Doing it, and the business world is also impacted. Nobody can deny that. Economy is also in shambles, but we can see what is happening now. The Ukraine crisis that we are seeing, Russia, what we are seeing, those are the traditional reasons for economy and world getting impacted. But this was one kind of a existential threat which impacted every individual in the globe, on the globe. So that is something that we all have to think about, and also take all necessary precautions. Health has never been such a predominant concern as it has become now, and that perhaps will bolster our future activities. And hopefully we do not have to do more research to see how the next pandemic is going to affect us, because human beings will be more secure by then, societies will be more secure, and nations and the globe will also be probably more secure, and we will learn from our mistakes and remember that we should not allow history to repeat itself so disastrously. Thank you one and all.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm already getting messages from the paper presenters that your observations will help them to rethink and rewrite their paper. Thank you. And I also want to inform you all, please be present in the valedictory session, because I'm trying to invite two people from Ukraine in the valedictory who are not listed in the program schedule. Yeah, one from Kiev, the capital, and one from the ministry itself, a lawyer, also working in ministry, internal affairs ministry. So, but the problem is that they can speak Ukrainian language and Russian language. They need some translator. So I am trying to get some translator if I can, or else they will speak in a very mixed up language, like some Ukrainian words in the English version, maybe. But we want to see them, we want to hear from them, because now the world is thinking about them. And in Kiev, the professor is saying, like, I don't know about the internet connectivity, because of the hacking, we are getting disrupted internet connection. So let's see.
Best wishes to you, Nandini, and I will try to join in, but just come back from travel, and it was a good session. Congratulations to all the paper presenters. Okay, so I will leave now and try to join later. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So without delay, now I want to start our next panel, that is panel 9 on human security and law. Our chairperson is not present here, so I want to invite our co-chair, Dr. Bhupender Singh, Associate Professor, School of Law in Christ University, and Kiran Chauhan, who is Assistant Professor at Bhupal Nobles University, Udaipur. If you can, please assist with Bhupender as co-chair.
Sure, ma'am. I'm audible to you, ma'am?
Yes, Bhupender Singh, are you there? You both are co-hosts, so you can unmute yourself if you want.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon.
So, sir, we have to end the session by 4. We have only half an hour left, but many of the presenters are not here. So, please take care of the time.
Yes, sure. So first of all, thank you so much. And ma'am, please we proceed with this first presentation, and all the best to all the presenter. So yes, please, the first presenter according to the list, and we proceed accordingly. And maximum time is given for all the presenters, like 5 minutes only, and within 5 minutes you have to complete the presentation.
So I want to invite Dr. Mohan Singh Saggu, Associate Professor, Baba Faridlal Law College, Faridpur, Punjab. He will talk on relationship of state with human security and law. Sir, please try to confine your presentation in 5 minutes, and you can share your screen if you want.
Madam, I want to request you, please extend my presentation for 15 or to 25 minutes.
So you don't want to present now?
Please extend my presentation for at least 20 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. So nice of you.
So now, Biplab Devnath, do you want to present? Biplab Devnath? Biplab Devnath is Assistant Professor at Tripura University, Tripura. His topic of presentation is deterring the both people, the domestic and regional dimensions of Australia's policy towards asylum seekers. Biplab, you are co-host, so you can unmute yourself and you can start your presentation. Biplab, can you hear me? No, we can't hear you. Biplab, we can't hear you. Please leave and then rejoin. I think then we can hear you. Bhupender Singh, Kiran Chauhan, you can present, I think.
Yeah, can I, ma'am, can I present the paper?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
Present.
thanks, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Good afternoon to all of you. Myself, Kiran Chauhan, Assistant Professor in BNU University, Faculty of Law, Udaipur, Rajasthan. I'm presenting a paper. I'm sharing a PPT with you all. Is it visible to all?
Yes, it is visible.
Yes. My topic is increasing marital age of marriage for girls, a step towards women empowerment. The Union Cabinet took the decision to raise the legal age of marriage for girls from 18 to 21 years. The government is bringing the age of marriage for both men and women equally as per Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, which provides right to equality without any discrimination. As many as 23.3% of women aged 20 to 24 were married before they turned 18. The legal age of marriage as per National Family Health Survey 2019 to 21. The latest survey shows that the problem is more prevalent in rural India, at least 27%, whereas in urban regions, underage marriage accounted for 14.7% of all marriages. The government sees the proposed legislation as a strong measure to bring women on equal footing with men, in keeping with the vision of the Constitution on gender equality. The current law regarding this age group is a current law for Hindus, as per the Hindu Marriage Act 1955, which set 18 years as the minimum age of marriage for the bride and 21 years as the minimum age for the groom. In Islam, the marriage of a minor who has attained puberty is considered valid. According to the Special Marriage Act 1954 and the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006, which also prescribed 18 and 21 years as the minimum age of consent for marriage for men and women respectively. For the new age of marriage to be implemented, these laws are expected to be amended. India is making many efforts for reducing this gender gap. India's effort for reducing gender gap, India has also ratified for this the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women in 1993. Article 16 of this convention strictly forbid child marriage and asks government to identify and enforce the minimum marriage age for women. Since 1998, India has had national legislation exclusively on human rights protection, which is drafted in consonance with the international instrument such as the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. The reason behind the minimum age is the law prescribes a minimum age of marriage to essentially outlaw child marriages and prevent the abuse of minors. Child marriages expose women to early pregnancy, malnutrition, and violence, which can be mental, emotional, and physical. Early pregnancy is also associated with increased child mortality rates, and it affects the health of the mother. A change in law is also more likely to bring changes in social perceptions in progressive societies. The minimum legal age for marriage for women to be increased from 18 years to 21 years, which means lowering the maternal mortality rate and improving nutrition levels. The pros of this, currently several girls are forced to drop their studies for marriage, and increasing the minimum legal age required to marry to 21 would give them time to pursue their studies, and it also gives an opportunity to pursue higher education. Another contention is that pregnancies in teenage girls heighten the possibility of high blood pressure, anemia, and many other health issues in the mother. It can lead to severe pregnancy complications that can cause death of the mother. That is why raising the age of marriage for girls could help decrease the maternal mortality rate. Early marriages also cause mental health problems as per studies. So increasing the legal age shall reduce the possibility of mental health issues among young brides. Finally, the decision is also projected as one affirming the principle of gender neutrality by making the minimum marital age for women the same as that of men. Cons, at present, child marriage are happening throughout India. even after having the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006. So the problem, I would say the problem lies in the implementation. Hence, the law alone cannot bring a change in society without its proper implementation. I concluding my paper with this, that the raising the minimum legal age for marriage for girls is a good move, although increasing the legal age is a progressive step in achieving gender equality, but it is more important to focus on the effective implementation of the existing policy framework and laws. Widespread awareness program on the importance of girls' education, raising the legal age of marriage should be conducted, and the government should increase its spending on education and healthcare. Women empowerment will get a further fillip with equality in marriage. Thank you so much.
Bhupinder ji, do you want to say something on this paper? Then we have to invite our next speaker, Biplab Devnath. No, sir, we can't hear you. When you are joining, are you accepting that join with computer or mobile? There is a message, join with computer or join with dial-in. Are you joining with laptop or mobile? Anyways, so I think no other, I'm joining with, okay. So from laptop, you will get this message, join with computer. But I don't know what is happening. Yeah, I can see you. I can read your messages, but we can't hear your voice. Is there anyone else from this session? I can't see anyone else against Mohan Singh Saggu, who said he needs to, he will take some time. So, and I can't see even Bhupinder Singh. Dr. Bhupinder, are you there? Can you speak something? Okay, then I will end this session here only. And I will start next session. Biplav, please try to rejoin and take some technical help from your friend. And you will get chance to present your paper if you want in the next session.
Hello.
Yes, Mohan Singh Saggu, do you want to present paper now?
Kindly, madam, please shift my paper. I shall present in next session.
Okay, no issue.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Okay.
Yeah. So without delay, I want to start our next session, that is on child security and governance. If somebody missed chance to present paper in the previous sessions, they can present here. Chairperson is Dr. Kanchan Chandan, teaching faculty, Punjab University, Chandigarh. Co-chairperson Surinder Singh, assistant professor, JLN Government College, Haripur, Manali. Here I want to mention one thing, that Kanchan is actually busy in some program at Brussels. So she said that she can't join us because of some internet connectivity issue. And she's also taking, I think she's getting some prize from KAICIT in Brussels. So Surinder, please take charge of this session.
Okay, good evening to all. May I audible?
Yes.
Okay, good evening to all. I think now we are starting the last session of this whole proceeding, I think. Before listening to all the presentation in this technical session, I would say in the domain of the human security, the issue of the child security is quite important as well as significant, because the importance of the non-security, non-traditional security threats are increasing day by day in the present era. So there are the many issues which we have to discuss in the form of the non-traditional security threat. So I think in this paper, especially the which are focusing mainly on the child security, that becomes the relevance of this very, very technical session. So within this technical session, what I am expecting from all the participants, whatever they want to give in the form of a new addition values, they can put into their presentation, so that there will be something, a new, whatever they want to present. While analyzing whatever they have studied, I would like to listen more about what the new things they are going to add within this whole domain, especially like child security, if we are talking about. So I think we have not that much of time. So I would like to invite firstly the Ravinder Kumar, assistant professor from Sonipat, Haryana. The title is Human Security, Role and Impact of School Education and Governance. So I invite Ravinder Kumar, please present your presentation.
I think Ravinder Kumar is not present here, so we can go to the next presenter.
Okay, not a problem. The second presenter is Dr. Seema Ahuja. The title is Child Security Threat, Recent Trends.
I think we have another presenter. I added this name. If you allow, I can read.
Yeah, definitely you can go ahead.
Okay, so I want to invite John Ekeke from Department of Hospitality and Tourism Management, Faculty of Management Science, University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria. He is presenting on societal influences and the safety of the girl child in Nigeria, the role of entrepreneurship and stakeholders. And the co-authors of this paper are J. Nayu from Department of Accounting, Faculty of Management, University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria, and J. N. Obiora and G. C. Obogbulam from Department of Hospitality and Tourism Management, Faculty of Management Science, University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria. So over to you, sir. You are co-host now, so you can share your screen as well as you can unmute yourself if you want.
Good day from Nigeria. Good day from Nigeria.
Good day, sir.
We are presenting a topic. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Good. We are presenting a topic on societal influences on. We are presenting a topic that says societal influences and the girl child. You know, if you have been hearing about the things that is going on in Nigeria, you will discover that the population in Nigeria is overblown, and consequently, we have what is called youth unemployment in Nigeria, and we also have the get rich quick syndrome in Nigeria. All these things are as a result of societal influence, which has led to moral decadence in Nigeria, to the effect that the youths are now looking for money without working hard. Dignity of labor has been thrown to the winds. The government cannot provide employment. the society, the real sector cannot provide employment. The population seems to be more than what the society can offer. Now that is the basis for this, because we are now looking at what are the societal influences that has led to this moral decadence in Nigeria, to the effect that ritual killing is now going on. And unfortunately, the girl child is the victim. They are sacrificing, the Yahoo boys are now sacrificing their girlfriends. Girls are innocent girls are being kidnapped and used for ritual killing in the name of money. So that is the problem Nigeria has found itself. And we are saying, we are making an argument that there is need to come down to the drawing board again and now know what entrepreneurship could help, how entrepreneurship could help to solve this problem. And we are advocating for graduate entrepreneurial program that will be modeled towards the Igbo apprenticeship system. We all know the Igbo apprenticeship system, which has even been adopted by the Harvard Business School. It is a model, that encourages people to serve their masters for a specific number of years, and when they graduate, they are settled with money to establish their own businesses. And with that, we now discover that young men are able to, become entrepreneurs on their own with the valid experience that they gain from their masters. So we are now advocating that there should be a collaboration of all stakeholders in Nigeria, from the parents to the industry owners to the government. They should come together to fashion out how they can rescue the youth from themselves. And the only way this could be done is through the establishment of an enterprise culture that will be able to bring in or will be able to enhance the dignity of labor. The young men should be able to feel secure that on graduation, something is waiting for them. So the Central Bank of Nigeria, the government, all of them should come together, and the parents should also come together to fashion out how this could be done. And we want a situation where the youth on graduation should not in any way go outside and begin to look for jobs. Rather, they should be job creators instead of waiting for sacrifice. And this sacrifice is at the detriment of the girl child in Nigeria. So that is our argument. It is beyond the rate that the ritual killing is going on. It is beyond what the ordinary man could bear. They are killing the girls on a daily basis. So we are making an argument that something concrete should be done, in order to rescue the youth from themselves. And also, we are also making an argument that the parent, before someone will be able to bring a child into this world, that parent should be able to know what it takes to give a child, to develop a child to the point of taking care of himself. So all hands must be on deck to bring this to fruition. Nigeria is developing into almost a failed state. So please, we are making an argument that something should be done, and it should be done very fast, to rescue the youths from themselves and also entrenched what we call the enterprise culture. Let the youth see, value in dignity of labor and not depending on sacrifice that will not lead them to anywhere. So that is what we are presenting to the world today. If there's any way, the Institute will help to communicate this to our government so that they will be able to come up with a strategic framework that will help, the rescuing of the youths from destroying the girl child. That would be a very good one to us. So that is what we'll have for the conference. And we hope our paper
Yes, sir. Surinder
complete
Singh.
paper when it is that. So please, thank you for listening to the question in this regard. Thank you very much.
Surinder.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
John
you.
Ekeke. Surinder,
Yes.
can we continue?
Yes, ma'am, you can continue. I think you should invite the second one who wants to present exactly.
Yeah. No, now it's, yeah, now you have to go with the second presenter.
Okay. Second presenter, I think Dr. Seema Ojha, Child Security Threats. Recent.
No, but he is not present. She is not present here.
Okay, okay. Ravinder Kumar, Assistant Professor, Sonipat, Haryana.
I think she is also not present here.
Okay, the next, I think the title is Injured Childhood, an Analysis of POSCO Act. Is there anybody who wants to present on this very topic?
Minu, are you there? If someone's name is not written in the as participant name, I can't identify, so I can't make him or her co-host. So you can write that whether you are present here or not. Biplab, do you want to present now? Yes, Biplab.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. Okay. So I'm really sorry. There has been some technical problem in my laptop. So I have joined with the different device. Am I audible right now? Clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for inviting me for this conference, and thank you, Chair. And I'm sorry for the delay. So the paper which I wanted to present was on by taking the case of boat people, which is a major issue in Australian politics. I want to take the case of Australia and then look at the link between human security, governance issues, and the issue of migration. As we know that migration is one of the most contemporary human security concerns in recent politics, and the rapid movement of people across the borders have also affected interstate relations a great deal, and it also has posed a very big challenge to global governance. And if we look at the latest reports, the UN International Migration Report of 2020, the number of international migrants in the world stands roughly at around 281 million, which is almost an increase of 60 million between 2010 and 2020. And among them, the number of forcibly displaced population have doubled over the last 2 decades, and currently it stands at around 34 million. That is the data of 2020. And as a result of which, now many nations view irregular migration as a security concern, and it is also a reflection of the changing nature of threat in the post-Cold War period from a essentially state-centric to a non-state-centric one. Now, in case of there are three particular reasons why I chose Australia in establishing or in explaining the link between governance and migration. The one reason is that Australia of all the countries have one of the most hardened policies towards asylum seekers, as it poses a major human security issue. It is also one of the country to have probably the only country to have a provision for offshore detention centers for asylum seekers, where centers were located in outside countries such as Papua New Guinea or Nauru. And over the years, asylum seekers have also posed a major challenge for Australia's both bilateral relations, especially with its neighbor Indonesia, as well as it has also posed a challenge for global governance, particularly with its own region. And over the last few decades, illegal migration of people, especially asylum seekers, which is also commonly referred to as boat people, have dominated the political discourse of Australia. However, interestingly, Australia's attitude towards boat people is very, very different from its general approach towards refugees. In fact, Australia has a very rich history of refugee intakes. It has resettled close to 90 million refugees since the Second World War. It has also acceded to many of the recent refugee conventions, especially the 1951 Convention, 1967 Protocol. It is also a country which is actively engaged with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. But when it comes to asylum seekers, Australia has a very, very hardened and a very radical stance. And it is very surprising because numerically, the number of people seeking asylum in Australia is much less as compared to many other nations. For example, if you look at the data, till August 2021, the number of people seeking asylum in Australia is around 39,000, which is almost 0.1% of its total population. And the maximum peak year of asylum seeking in Australia was around 20,000, which was in the year 2013. But if you look at the response, it is the only country in the world which has a mandatory detention and offshore processing centers, and it always perceives these board people as a threat to national security, which needs to be prevented at any cost from reaching Australian borders. So why is this response so radical and so varied? And probably we have to look back to history and the history of Australia's attitude towards non-Western races. For example, when Australia achieved independence in 1901, the very first legislation that the country passed was the Commonwealth Immigration Restrictions Act of 1901, which triggered what is referred to as the White Australia policy. Now, the purpose of the White Australia policy was to preserve the Britishness of Australian society and create some sort of ethnically homogeneous nation. And that is done by prohibiting the non-white immigrants, particularly from Asia. The White Australia policy also sought to prevent low-wage immigration from Asia, people who were considered to be of lower educational background and lower living standards. And it was feared that migration from those sectors would depress the living and working conditions of Australia. And that is how they tried to manage or maintain some sort of a cultural distance between itself and the Asian neighbors. The White Australia policy continued till 1960s, till there was a gradual reorientation, particularly after the Vietnam War period. And eventually, legally, the White Australia policy was dismantled in 1975 by the Racial Discrimination Act. This was also a development or period where the eradication of White Australia policy also went parallel with Australia trying to reinforce itself as a multicultural nation by taking a significant burden of refugees. For example, in between 1975 and 1980, that was after the Vietnam War period, Australia accepted almost 42,000 refugees, which represents an intake rate of 1 refugee for every 800 Australians, which was at that time the highest per capita asylum acceptance rate by any country. And it included a significant number of Indo-Chinese people who were displaced after the Cambodian crisis. But when it came to illegal migrants, it became a major source of anxiety and insecurity. In fact, the term boat people entered into the Australian vernacular during 1976, when the first boat of asylum seekers came to Australian shores after the Vietnam War period. And for obvious reasons, they were met with very hostile response. And that was the time when Australia initiated these mandatory detention centers for the arrivals. As the Cold War,
please end by 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll take around 2.5 minutes. So as the Cold War came to an end, there were 2-3 different trends which we witnessed. One was Australia tried to diplomatically engage with many countries of Southeast Asia, but at the same time, their notion of security also became very non-centric, where asylum seekers were believed to have a much greater security problem. Rather than treating the issue of illegal migration as a humanitarian issue, Australian governments or Australian policymakers started to view this more as a security issue. And different incidents also politicized that issue. And one of the major incidents was in 1996, when a member of parliament by the name of Polly Hanson, and we refer to this event as Hansonism, where when she spoke to the parliament that Australia is in danger of swamped by the Asians. And she advocated a reduction of immigration and revoking these traditional policies in the tune of White Australia policy so that immigration could be reduced. And interestingly, her comments and her views had a greater public acceptance during that time. In fact, she founded a party which was called the One Nation Party, which had actually won a large number of seats in the Queensland state elections and later on in the federal elections as well. So it also became much, much more politicized. And the other important trend was that Australia's policy towards asylum seekers also deteriorated its relations with many other Southeast Asian neighbors, especially the nearest neighbor, Indonesia. Now, Australia's relationship with Indonesia were already very bad since 1999, after the events in East Timor, when Australia participated or got involved in the East Timor independence. Now, this relationship became even more hostile after the asylum seeking issue. The real issue was that, whereas there was a constant blame game between Australia and Indonesia, that since many of the boat people come through Indonesia, there is a constant blame that the Indonesian authorities are actually involved, and there is a lot of corruption in Indonesian administration, which actually allows these migrants to come to Australian shores. On the other hand, Indonesia also blamed Australia that Australian policy towards asylum seekers are very, very unilateral, and it doesn't take into conscience the regional issues or regional views towards the issues. And in recent times also, many of these issues, policies of Australia, such as the Pacific solution, where Australian people, where asylum seekers were put in detention abroad, outside Australia, where detention centers are made in countries such as Papua New Guinea or Nauru, and rather than processing the asylum seekers in Australia, they are actually processed out in overseas. And then there are the policies such as Stop the Boat campaign, and then policies such as Operation Sovereign Borders. All these are policies which subscribes a element of deterrence, to deter the people to come to Australia at any cost. And as a result of this, that has huge human rights and human security issues involved. Many of the reports have all criticized Australia a great deal because of the facilities in the detention centers, Australia's migration policy. For example, a UN report in 2002 described the detention centers in Australia, which is worse than prison, and there are gross human rights violation of men, women, and including children. So this has been a very big discourse in Australian politics. And going ahead, and since Australia as a nation is trying to develop good relations with many of the countries with Southeast Asia because of their own regional relationship, the issue of migration will be a very, very crucial issue in developing global governance mechanism regionally, among the countries, particularly with ASEAN. And this is, it always has to balance these national security assertions and global aspirations. And until and unless they could balance it, Australia will always find it very difficult to manage relationship with the many other countries, not only manage with many other countries in the region, but also its policies towards detention centers will also invoke a lot more attention internationally, which is not a very, very promising thing for a country like Australia, which tries to project itself as a good international citizen. So I stop here. I hope I have somehow covered a bit of this issue, and any suggestions or any questions will be most welcome. Thank you.
Okay, and now I invite the third presenter. I think Minu is here. So now you can go ahead with your presentation. Yeah, you continue.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Meenu Dugala Kansal, and today I'm first of all, thanks for providing me this platform. And today I'm going to present my paper, and the title of my paper is Injured Childhood, an Analysis of POCSO Act. So child abuse has been a very it's a problem nowadays. Our former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan has well quoted that there is no duty more important than ensuring that child rights are respected, that their welfare is protected, and their lives are free from the fear that they grow up in peace. Child abuse has taken a prominent position as the most destructive problem faced by the citizens of all nations worldwide. The innocence and trustiness of the child's tender age exploited, their dignity and rights trampled, the violence against the children without reservation reported across the geographical, racial, religious, cultural and boundaries. So child abuse is not a problem which is concerned with a particular ethnic group, or it is concerned with a particular nation only. It is this problem is reported across the geographical aspects. Child abuse, an epitome. Child abuse is an act towards exploitation of the child. Abuse is a broader term. Black's Law Dictionary defines it is any form of cruelty to child's physical, moral, or mental well-being. It is also used to describe some forms of sexual attack which may or may not amount to rape. According to David Gill, child abuse is the intentional non-accidental use of physical force or intentional non-accidental acts of omission on the part of parent or other caretaker interacting with a child in his or her care, aimed at hurting, injuring, or destroying the child. Child abuse is also explained as the intended, unintended, perceived maltreatment of the child, whether habitual or not. The Honorable Supreme Court of India, in a historical verdict in in a historical verdict in Gaurav Jain versus Union of India, gave a wider meaning to the abuse, that everything contrary to good order established by usage amount to abuse. Physical, mental, or maltreatment also is an abuse. Further, it is found that crime occurs in homes, foster care centers, schools, at workplaces, places of entertainment, even in the streets. The range of perpetrators has gone beyond habitual offenders. It nowadays has also included the persons whom the child thinks is reliable, trustworthy individual, is also family member and a caretaker. The situation is such that the child is confused and is not able to trust anyone in the future. The state of affair is more pathetic in rural parts, as there is lack of privacy or awareness among the people. In some situations, child is ignorant, that they are not even aware of what offense has been committed against them, or of their rights. Some children even go to the extent to think that it is a part of being a child, because they found that these children don't complain for a long time before they realize the truth. Some children are particularly vulnerable because of the gender, race, ethnic origin, disability, or social status. This condition is growing concern, prevalent in almost all the nations despite their development status. It has been observed that in several cases, a malefactor is a person known to the child, like step-parent, neighbors, relatives, highly trusted people. Extra sexual abuse by a person well known to the child is the most shocking crime of humanity, which involves breach of trust. Child victim rights child victim rights children are one among the most vulnerable victims. Child abuse and exploitation is in steep increase, and their protection from any form of abuse has become a global concern. Most of the countries have framed laws to protect their children effectively. Children are innocent and unblemished. They necessitated to report to law enforcement agencies when stepping into the legal process. Child victims find themselves thrust into lengthy procedures and unfamiliar judicial process. So most of the child abuse is not reported because, you know, the common citizens, the common people are facing problem due to the lengthy procedures and judicial intricacies and unfamiliar judicial processes. To deal with this problem of child abuse, an act was framed or legislated in India, that is the act of POSCO Act, in order to address the brutal crimes of sexual exploitation and abuse of children, protection of children from sexual offenses. POXO Act 2012 was introduced. It came into force in 14th November 2012 and is related with the Sexual Abuse and Child Pornography Act, and this act includes 46 provisions. Though the act has been enacted and it's a good legislation, it is dealing with the brutal crimes and sexual exploitation of the children, but still it has 46 provisions also. It has 46 provisions, but still it's a good legislation, but still it has some limitations also. There are some limitations in the POSCO Act. The provisions under the POXO Act is a clear indication of the gender bias. Similar to the laws of rape under IPC, the pronoun used for the accused is he. Thus, only a male can be booked for the offenses under the relevant provisions of the POXO Act, though unlike rape, the victim under POXO Act can be any child, irrespective of the gender. The accused child can only be a male, and females are again given a protective shield for reasons unknown. Saying, so the accused can be a child also, can be a male also, and can be a female also. And same is with the victim. A victim can be he also, can be a she also. Saying that females do not subject children to forceful sexual assault would be untrue. Incidents of such sexual victimization by females has been observed and witnessed, and this might come as an eye-opener, but the child sexual abuse is at least 10% more among boys than girls. Such male child sexual abuse cases are just not reported. In August 2013, a boy was sodomized by his seniors at a 4-day Scouts and Guides camp in Vasco, Goa, and the parents are not as careful about their male children as they are about their girl child. This has been said by Meena K. Jain, the chairperson of Child Welfare Committee. She stated that cases of boys undergoing abuse is much higher than girls, but not reportedly at all, mostly due to the ignorance of the parents. The then Joint Commissioner of Police Crime, Hemant Nibhalkar, joined saying that boys aged in the age group of 8 to 12 years were most vulnerable to sexual abuse, and the parents should watch out that for their unwanted attachment towards their certain elders, since opposite sexes attract most often than not the perpetrators. In case of a male child, sexual abuse is a woman. However, the sexual abuse law in India, just like the law of rape, has restricted itself only to male perpetrators, thereby indicating the narrow and the age-old mindset of the legislators. Mr. Hemant added, the psychosocial setup completely sidelines the protection of boys, and virginity is also associated with girls only. Again, Meena Jan has stated, as much as parents take pain to teach their daughters that they could be sexually abused and molested, the boy child is never informed. The concept of sexual abuse is highly gender based. So this is the biggest problem with the act, and only the girl child is focused upon, as she is the key reproductive individual. It has been said that sexuality of girls is only
1 minute more.
Okay, sorry ma'am. Then there are certain other flaws with the POSCO Act. Those are that it is gender biased, and there are other certain loopholes like medical examination, that it's mandated in the act that the medical officer should be a female only. Then treatment costs, the law cast an obligation on the medical fraternity, and it has been seen that free medical care is not given to the victims. Then there is some problem with the act regarding the consent, sexual intimacy also. So basically, while concluding, due to shortage of time, I can't explain all the loopholes of the act. But while concluding, I must say that POXO is a defective law, and its shortcomings should be removed to make it a more effective law. Labeling of accused as belonging to specific gender alone is unjust and is based on the same age-old mindset as the framers of the IPC had in the 19th century. Then
end here, please.
Then POXO, while concluding, in the end, I must say that children are very precious, and their childhood should be protected, and POXO is a good legislation. It's a good initiative, but its shortcomings, but there are lots of shortcomings in the act, and if these shortcomings should be eradicated, it would become more purposeful, and it would be an effectuative law in a true sense. Then only if certain shortcomings in the law are refuting its purpose, must be removed to effectuate the law in its true sense. Only then we can expect a protected environment where the childhood would be protected too. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Minu. Surinder ji, can we call next presenter Hima, because Hima is presenting also on POSCO Act.
Yes, ma'am. Sure. Very sure.
Okay, so Hima Srinis SL, Assistant Professor, Sri Narayana Guru College of Legal Studies, Kollam, Kerala. She will present on tribals and POSCO threats in Kerala. Hima, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. May I go ahead?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, one and all present here and respected chair. Let me just introduce myself. I am Hima Srini, researcher, SMG CLS, Kollam, Kerala. First and foremost, I express my gratitude, sincere gratitude to the most enthusiastic Srimati Nandini ma'am and to the organizers of IIHSG. Before going into my paper, let me tell you why this area has been chosen. It is because the study comes at a crucial time about how effective is the implementation of the main law POCSO is, especially in tribal areas in Kerala. And coming to the POCSO Act, it is a comprehensive law to provide for the protection of the children from the offenses of sexual assault, sexual harassment, and pornography, while safeguarding the interest of the child at every stage of the judicial process by incorporating child-friendly mechanisms for reporting, recording of evidence, investigation, and speedy trial of offenses through designated special courts. It is to be admitted that the journey from no law to a special law like the POCSO Act and its efforts to implement it has witnessed contribution from various actors. As one of my earlier speaker has mentioned in her paper that the POCSO, it is the POCSO Act is meant to be a socio-beneficial piece of legislation whose objective is to provide justice to the child. Therefore, the purpose of my study was not only to examine the implementation of the POCSO Act, but also whether its goals were being attained in contents, especially in the implementation in tribal areas and its impact. We all are committed to protect children, and I believe that crime against children are the worst form of cruelty. Of course, we have to create a safe environment for children and for those who have been victimized. The POCSO Act was constituted for the protection of the child rights, but it is negatively affecting the tribal community. In tribes, there is no concept of a marriage with a ceremony, and couples started living together from their teens onwards within their parental home. The tribals, they cannot fathom the offense they are said to have been committed. The POCSO Act, it stipulates rigorous punishment and does not give room for the courts to mitigate it based on specific circumstances. The Act operates on the presumption of guilt. What is prevalent among the tribes of Wayanad is child marriage rather than child sexual abuse. Tragically, both are seen as same in the eyes of the law. The study addressed that there is a need to harmonize the custom and the POCSO. In tribes like Paniya and Katunayaka, there is no concept of a marriage with a ceremony. And the couples, they started living together from their teens onwards within their parental home. Many of the men caught under POCSO don't have marriage certificates or photographs to prove their wedding. Tribals cannot fathom the offense they have said to have been committed. So my major objectives of the study were to determine the awareness level of the POCSO and to study the conflict between this law and the customary marriage practices among Paniya tribe in Wayanad. And biological maturity or puberty is not only the criteria for getting married among this Paniya community. The marriage function was based on norms and ceremonies. Marriage practice of modern times, marriage, it is not a big deal among Paniya community. They even have marriage practices such as cohabitation and elopement. Many of them get married with the consent of the family and community, and in those marriages there is a celebration within the community. Many of them were not aware about the process and importance of marriage registration under the laws of the modern state. Some of them know that there are some provisions like that, but they were unaware about the purpose of the marriage registration, and they were not at all aware about the punishment for the violation under the rule of law. In the words of one of the respondents, it was that we started to live together with the consent of both the families, and community does not have any problem in that. And then what is the need of registration? They are not even recognizing that by marrying before 18, they are committing a crime and violating the law. Most of them thought that the legal acts affect them only when the marriage is done without the consent of any of the parties or the families. Some of them know that there are some legal issues related to marriage, but even then they never even thought that it will be a crime if it is not being followed. Knowledge about laws against child marriage and POCSO Act is very low. And girls who are under the age of 18 got married or had their sexual intercourse. They are saying that their custom is allowing all these things. They are not bothered about the legal age of the marriage. A respondent shed light on this matter and explained that he didn't even understand the reason for imprisonment till he was locked up in jail and was hearing for the first time about the POCSO Act, which was imposed upon him from his jailmates. Okay, marriage among the male respondents are getting informed about the POCSO Act only after they are imprisoned under this act. Exclusion in the form of custodialization. Paniya youth were arrested from the various settlements of Wayanad as per the POCSO Act. POCSO Act was constituted for the protection of child rights, but it is negatively affecting the tribal community, which molds its families with love and sincerity instead of agreements. Although if there are formal organizations to report about the criminal case against the indigenous community, there is no one to support them for the policy education and legal support. In this case, the male partner is considered as a criminal since the spouse has not reached actual marriage age according to the Indian Marriage Act. This has negatively affects the genuineness of the relationship, and only constraint was the age. One of the 9 respondents of the research was accused of kidnap and sexual abuse, which amounts to 7 years of vigorous imprisonment. Other respondents were imprisoned, prosecuted, and sent to jail for similar cases and got bail after 14 days of imprisonment and all. And in some cases, the so-called offenders got the bail only after 50 days of imprisonment and all. In a rare case, the judiciary has charged 2 cases of kidnap and sexual assault, POCSO Act 2012. One of the respondents was sentenced under POCSO to 10 years of imprisonment for having sex with his underage wife, in spite of the women pleading before the court to let him go. According to their custom, sexual relationship with the partner before the marriage, it is not a sin. So the girl revealed their relationship before the court, which leads to the rigorous imprisonment of the male partner. In most of the cases, the imprisonment affects the whole family and the girl's social status. And many of them don't know how to handle the case. To apply for bail, the respondents needed to place their property, documents, etc. as guarantee for bail. But in many cases, the respondents lived in forest land, which belongs to the government, over which they had no legal rights. The court
1 minute more.
Yes, the court granted bail to majority of the respondents on the condition that they will be present in the hometown and they will not have any contact with the partner. Okay, but even though there is cohesion among the community members, there is a limited social support from the people of outside the community. So the consequences of the child marriages among Paniya community and all are the child marriages, okay, that are common among the Paniya community, and awareness about the modern laws under the Indian Constitution. There are many safeguards, even though there are many safeguards through various acts for the protection of the weaker sections. In modern world, the crime against children are so prevalent. So it is the duty of the state to protect the child rights through enactment of laws. In India, there is a powerful law, POCSO Act, which has been enacted. None of the couples or parents or elders were aware about the existence of POCSO Act. That is the thing. And coming to my conclusion, let me conclude my paper with a quote of Kofi Annan, that within the courts, there is no trust more sacred than one the world holds the children. There is no duty more important than ensuring their rights are respected, that the welfare is being protected, and their lives are being free from fear, and they can grow up in peace, which clearly states that everyone should be protected. Thank you.
Surinder?
Okay, I think now I invite I think Tejasvi. The title is Good Governance, Protection of Child Rights from Andhra Pradesh. I think she's not.
Tejasvi is already co-host, so you can unmute yourself if
Yes,
you
sir.
want.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah, you can continue, and
Respected delegate.
the time limit because it's going so far. Okay, you have to just take 4 to 5 minutes only.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can continue.
Respected delegates and co-participants, a very good morning, good evening to all. It is to be a honor on this part of this international conference. And my today's topic in this session is child rights, good governance, and protection of child rights. Mainly the childhood is the most important phase of a person's life because it is the phase where everything affects the person's attitude development because they are so young. They are human beings and are the subject of their own rights. It is the children who will be the ones to contribute to the future development of the country. And most important definition of the child is says that International Labour Organization launched the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Child, which defines a child as anyone below the age of 18. Um, Next, child rights activists are increasing their pressure to include those individuals within the age group mentioned above as children. The United Nations Convention on Rights of Child status stated a child as everyone under 18 unless the Plantation Labor Act 1951 has its separate definition for child, adult, and adolescent. It defines child as a person who has not completed his or her 14th year. There are so many rights of children, or the study. The study aims to critically evaluate how the violations of the child rights can be prevented and to provide the parents and government with the necessary information about the responsibilities to protect the rights of the child. There are many juvenile justice acts seeks to achieve the objectives of United Nations Convention on Rights of Child as ratified by India on December 11, 1992. It specified procedural safeguards in case of children in conflict with law. It seeks to address challenges in the existing act, such as delay in adoption process, high pendency of cases, possibility of injunctions. The international laws are very UN Convention on Rights of Child. It has derived following rights of the child: the right to survival, the right to protection and right to development, right to freedom of thought and expression. There are so many national laws of rights in India. The following are the fundamental rights in the Constitution according to Article 15.3.21a. The child labor and child abuse. There are variety of child labor is most common when families experiences financial differences or uncertainty, whether because of poverty, major blackness. Now there is a major one act called POCSO Act sets a gender neutral term for the legal framework available to child sexual abuse victims. Consequently, a child of any gender who has been sexually wronged has access to the remedies provided under this act. The following are the main reasons for the child labor or abuse. There are various cultural reasons emphasizing on kids' growth. Certain cultures, like example, that employment is necessary for character and skill development, regardless of consequences for a child's enjoyments of their rights. Other national education systems that are insufficient or weak. Unemployment and poverty. There are many case laws regarding this child labor. That is, MC Mehta versus State of Tamil Nadu in 1997 has bring out a rule directive of prohibition of child labor also, and many international conferences also there. There are many responsibilities towards the government, but also to the parents also. The parents' health in the issues of health and living conditions, they are essential to provide some basic facilities to the child growth also, parents also. And here I am concluding my topic that although there are many laws and rights to child, international and national, there is still child labor and child was grown heavily. These laws which were present can be made implement so as to eradicate the child abuse and made governance for better protection of children. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank
Okay,
you, sir.
And now I invite MD Jehdur Rahman. Please present your topic on the scenario of child labor and child marriage in COVID-19 and the steps of government in the perspectives of Bangladesh.
I think he mailed me actually. He is not present here. He is very sick.
Okay, then now we invite the next candidate who is Dr. Gauri Narayan Mathur, New Delhi.
No, Gauri actually presented on 23rd her paper because she is traveling today by air. So
Okay,
can
so
we accommodate Mohan Singh Saggur now?
Yeah, sure. He can continue.
So Professor Mohan Singh Saggur, please introduce yourself and present your paper now.
Hello.
Yes.
Madam, am I audible?
Yes, perfectly.
Ji. Myself, Dr. Mohan Singh Saggu, Associate Professor, Baba Farid Law College, Faridkot. First of all, I am very much thankful to Madam Dr. Nandini Vashist for providing me valuable opportunity to read this paper in international conference. My topic is human security and state, ancient legal perspective. The United Nations Development Program coined the term human security in Human Development Report in 1994. This report approached security for the first time. Human security would no longer be viewed from a purely military perspective, but rather it would mean economic, food, health, environmental, personal, community, and political security. The concept of human security accords a higher status to the individual than to governmental interests. The issue of human security have individual than to governmental interests. This issue challenges the paradigm and highlights the part played by non-state actors in both threatening human security and also in rescuing or providing relief to those whose human security is endangered. It does so from a legal perspective to international law being one of the instruments used to realize human security, as well as being a material source or guiding principle for the formation of human security. In particular, it critically discusses how various non-state actors such as armed opposition groups, multinational corporations, private military security companies, non-governmental organizations, and national human rights institutions participate in the construction of such policies and how they are held legally accountable for their adverse impact on human security. Then ancient Indian society was not static, rather it was of dynamic nature. Changing needs of the society had to be recognized first, followed by modifications of the regulation to suit the changing needs of the society, and then enforced. In ancient India, public peace and human security could be maintained only when there was no violation of the rules and customs of different castes, communities, families, and localities. In the society, many activities of social and religious nature were pursued without any hurdle. Now, I would like to discuss something about the sources of ancient law, like sutras. Legal literature could be regarded as the result of a systematic development aimed at resolving real problems of social, economic, and judicial nature. The special class of literature is designated as sutras. The term sutra originally meant thread, but was used with the secondary meaning of a manual of instructions on many subjects written in short sentences running through a topic like a thread. A sutra is a short rule in as few words as possible. The Kalp Sutra are the oldest sutra works. It divides itself into three classes of Srot Sutra and Dharm Sutra. The Srot Sutra so called because they are based on Sruti, means heard the Veds. Then the Samriti Karas came into existence like Manu, Brihaspati, Yajnavalakya, Narad, and Katyan. Then they played a significant role in formulating the rules for the governing of social and religious life of the people, which were acceptable as authoritative in the administration of justice and perception of duty. Manu is one of the most outstanding figure in the history of lawgivers. He has left to the Indian world the first code of civil and criminal law. Manusmriti makes the summit of socio-political advancement in ancient India. Then after that, I would like to throw light on ancient laws. In Vedic period, when the social and state formation was yet to be completed, Dharma...
Have 1 minute more.
Ji. Dharma, which evolved from the Veds, was the main source of law. The Dharma Sutras considered the Ved as the first and foremost source of Hindu law. Then it is not an easy task to determine the precise meaning of the term dharma. Dharma is of various kinds, constantly growing and never very definite. People take what meaning they like out of it, and what they take out of it, it determines their outlook on the life. Now, I would like to conclude my topic. within the given time. Ancient Indian scholars were conscious of the fact that social order is a necessary precondition for the settlement of political order, which alone could assure human security and congenial environment in which people could lead their rightful growth in without any hurdle. The Vedic sages and the Samritikars came on the scene and provided rules and regulations for the governance of the society. Thank you, all of you, for patiently listening my views on the topic. Thanks once again. Thank you, all of you.
Surinder?
Okay, am I visible?
Yeah.
Yes. Sir, if there is any question, no, you may ask any question on the topic if you like.
Is there any other question from the audience side? If there are any question, they can make an query. Okay, I think there is no question. So I just want to sum up all the presentation which I have heard right now. So I'm going one by one. So firstly, the presentation was given by the Dr. John Eki. The title was like role of entrepreneurship in the girl child security. Whatever he described the status of the child security in Nigeria, especially relating it with the entrepreneurship, and he focused mainly on the dignity of the labor, which was I think not prevalent there, or but I can suggest here like this very concept, even dignity of labor, how he can narrate it in a more detailed way that can that can add the more value in the presentation. And the second presentation was presented by the Vipal Devnath, which was mainly related with the migration, because if there is any type of migration to any other country, there is a different types of forms which can be seen in the form of the changes, especially. So the argument which he was making, like how we can make how there can be maintained the proper balance if there can be any type of migration within the country or to other neighboring country. So this was very valid point, and I think it was really interesting to do this type of detailed investigation within that framework, and it was really good. So the third presentation was presented by the Minu, the issue of child abuse within the, I think, POCSO Act. So the complicated way or different types of hiccups which are there in the POCSO Act, he narrated in a very well way. So I think it was a very detailed investigation or narration given by the Minu ma'am especially. So I think it was a very good presentation. And the fourth one also was very related with the POCSO Act, and the most important part, how the POCSO Act was related to the tribal society, especially as a case study. It was really wonderful because she narrated very well like how the norms and culture are also playing the major role within the act. So that was, I think, the very strong part of that presentation, which I really appreciate. It was really, really, really good. And the next presentation was, I think, Tejaswini Child Rights, Good Governance. Again, it was more by and large was related with the problems and the issues within the POCSO Act and how it can be strengthened in a more practical way. These types of suggestions were given by the scholars, so that was really good. And the last presentation, it was also interesting, like the human security and change. But I just want to add here, like how the total discourse of human security and state is going to change in the present time. That is also important, which can be added in a very detailed way also, because the very nature of the human security earlier and in the present, there are I think there will be the big differences, because right now we are totally talking in the sense of non-traditional security threats, especially if we talk about the any issue which are related with the human security. This type of issues which are very much related with the human security, they are coming ahead. It is very, very, good part of the present discourse, which we are discussing even on this very platform today. So it was really nice. So I would like to thank you, all of you who came ahead and discuss different types of topics or presentation, and came with different types of values or argument in their presentation. Thank you to all. Now over to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Surinder, Dr. Surinder, for giving your comments and also summarizing the presentations.